The morning was quiet, too quiet. The sun had only just started to rise, painting the suburban streets in a pale orange glow. Birds sang faintly in the trees, and the world seemed at peace. But that peace shattered when a scream tore through the air. It was 6:12 a.m. when a passerby, walking his dog, found her. A young woman, sprawled face down on the gravel trail, her running shoes still tied tightly, her phone lying cracked just a few feet away. Blood seeped into the dirt beneath her, creating a stark contrast against the soft morning light. Her breathing was faint, shallow, irregular, and then it stopped. That young woman was Elena Marquez, a 27-year-old schoolteacher who loved early morning jogs. To her, running wasn't just exercise, it was meditation, a ritual that helped her clear her head before facing the classroom full of students. But on this particular morning, her routine ended in tragedy. The police arrived quickly, sirens slicing through the suburban calm. Detectives knelt beside her body, noting every detail. No signs of robbery, no personal belongings missing. Whoever attacked Elena hadn't been after her wallet or her phone. They had come for her. The trail, usually filled with dog walkers, parents with strollers, and joggers, was eerily empty. Witnesses trickled in, giving fragments of information. A shadowy figure spotted near the woods. The sound of hurried footsteps seconds before the scream. A car parked at an odd angle on a side road. But no one had seen the attack. No one had caught a clear glimpse of the assailant. And so, a terrifying question hung in the air. Was this a random act of violence, or had Elena been targeted? The town of Larchwood, known for its safety and quiet charm, had never seen a crime like this before. Panic rippled through the community. Jogging groups disbanded, residents stopped venturing out alone, and suspicion brewed in every corner. Who could have done this, and why? As detectives dug deeper into Elena's life, what they uncovered shocked even the most seasoned officers. Behind the image of a beloved teacher and devoted daughter, Elena had secrets that may have led her straight into the path of her killer. The investigation would reveal betrayals, lies, and a hidden web of connections that pointed to one chilling conclusion. Someone very close to her wanted her dead. But the story of Elena Marquez is not just about her tragic end. It's about the relentless pursuit of justice, the unraveling of a mystery that haunted an entire town, and the devastating truth about how a simple morning jog became her last. Before we start, like this video and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now let's begin. Elena Marquez was the kind of person people gravitated toward. At 27, she seemed to have the balance of life figured out. Bright, charismatic, and deeply dedicated to her work as a second-grade teacher at Larchwood Elementary. Her classroom was filled with posters she had made herself, cheerful drawings from her students taped to the walls, and a bookshelf stacked with well-worn storybooks she read to her class every afternoon. Parents adored her, students idolized her, and her colleagues described her as someone who went above and beyond, staying late to help struggling students and buying supplies out of her own pocket. Outside the classroom, Elena's life looked equally grounded. She lived alone in a modest but cozy townhouse just a few miles from the school. She was close with her mother, Sophia, and her younger brother, Mateo, who often came by for Sunday dinners. She was also an avid runner. Running, to her, was more than exercise. It was ritual. Every morning, rain or shine, she laced her running shoes at 6 a.m. sharp and hit the same trail, the Greenbriar Path, a winding stretch of gravel and asphalt that cut through woods and suburban backyards. It was that very routine that made her presence so familiar to neighbors. If you were out walking your dog or taking an early commute, you'd almost always spot Elena jogging with earbuds in, ponytail swaying, a determined look on her face. But sometimes, routines can make a person predictable, and predictability can make a person vulnerable. Though Elena seemed happy, her personal life was more complicated than it appeared. She had recently ended a long-term relationship with Daniel Cross, a 29-year-old contractor she had dated for nearly 3 years. Friends recalled the relationship as rocky, Daniel was charming in public, but reportedly jealous and controlling behind closed doors. Neighbors remembered late-night arguments. Elena's colleagues noticed she sometimes came into school visibly drained, her smile a little thinner. But Elena rarely talked about her struggles. She told friends the breakup was for the best and that she wanted to focus on herself. Still, Daniel hadn't taken the split well. He continued calling her, sending long emotional messages, and showing up unexpectedly at her townhouse. Elena confided to her best friend, Lydia Harper, that she felt uneasy, but didn't believe Daniel would ever hurt her. "He's just lost," she had said. "He'll move on." But not everyone was so sure. Around the same time, Elena had grown close to another teacher at the school, Thomas Reed, a 32-year-old science instructor who transferred to Larchwood Elementary the year before. Thomas was thoughtful, witty, and often walked Elena to her car after late staff meetings. Rumors swirled among colleagues about whether their friendship had turned into something more. Elena never confirmed it. She downplayed any speculation, insisting they were just friends, though she did admit to Lydia that Thomas had been there for her in ways Daniel never was. It was never clear how far their relationship had developed, but what was clear was that Daniel had noticed. Several people later reported seeing him parked near the school, waiting in his truck during late afternoons as though keeping tabs on Elena's movements. Larchwood itself was a place where serious crime was rare. It was the kind of town where people left doors unlocked, children played freely in the parks, and neighbors all knew one another. That's why Elena's murder would later send shockwaves through the community. It was unthinkable that such violence could touch their streets. But beneath the town's charm lay pockets of tension. Not everyone welcomed outsiders. Not everyone trusted the growing changes as new residents moved in. And some resented Elena's easy popularity and the spotlight she seemed to carry effortlessly. Elena's jogging ritual was both her therapy and her escape. She had a set route. She would leave her townhouse at 6 a.m., run down Maple Avenue, cut into Greenbriar Path, loop through the wooded trail, and circle back home. The route took about 45 minutes. She often posted her runs on a fitness app, sharing photos of sunrise skies with captions like, "Clear mind, strong day ahead." That predictability didn't go unnoticed. Several regulars on the trail had spoken to her in passing. Some even adjusted their own walking schedules to match hers, enjoying brief chats as she ran by. But in hindsight, her consistency also meant that anyone who wanted to find her or follow her knew exactly where she would be and when. The weeks leading up to her death carried subtle signs of unease. Elena confided to Lydia that she felt like someone was watching her during her jogs. "It's probably nothing," she shrugged, but she admitted that she sometimes heard footsteps behind her when no one was there. There were other moments, too. Once, her car alarm went off in the middle of the night, though nothing was stolen. Another time, she found her front door slightly ajar, even though she was sure she had locked it. And just days before the murder, she received a handwritten note tucked under her windshield wiper that read, "You can't hide forever." Elena never reported these incidents to police. To her, it felt like paranoia. To others, in retrospect, it was a chilling buildup. When the crime eventually shattered the town, detectives quickly turned their attention to 3 people in Elena's orbit. Daniel Cross, the ex-boyfriend, heartbroken and unable to let go. His jealousy of Thomas was known, and his temper was unpredictable. He had motive, and he knew her routines. Thomas Reed, the friend, perhaps more than a friend. Was he truly the comforting figure he appeared to be, or did he have secrets of his own? His closeness to Elena and the timing of his arrival in her life made him a person of interest. And a shadowy presence. Some witnesses claimed they had seen an unfamiliar figure loitering near the trail in recent weeks. A tall man in a hooded sweatshirt, always keeping his distance, never speaking. Was he just a passerby, or was he stalking Elena? On the night before her murder, Elena had dinner with her family. Her mother later recalled that she seemed lighter than she had in months. She laughed easily, talked about new lesson plans for her students, and even hinted at planning a summer trip to Spain. She went to bed early, texting Lydia goodnight at 9:47 p.m., saying, "Morning run as usual tomorrow. Call you after." Those would be her last words to her best friend. The next morning, she laced up her running shoes, tied her hair into a ponytail, and slipped her phone into the armband she always wore. She left her townhouse at exactly 6 a.m., just as she always did. By 6:12 a.m., she was lying motionless on the gravel trail, her ritual broken forever. The morning of June 14th began like any other for Elena Marquez. The sky was painted in streaks of pale gold as the sun crept over the horizon. A thin mist clung to the grass along the sidewalks, and the quiet streets of Larchwood felt suspended in that fragile silence only morning carries. At 5:55 a.m., Elena's alarm buzzed. She stirred, rolled out of bed, and stretched. Her townhouse was quiet. She moved through her routine with practice ease, tying her black running shoes, pulling her hair into a ponytail, slipping her phone into the armband she always wore. She looked at her fitness app, cued her morning playlist, and stepped outside into the cool air. Her neighbors knew her ritual well. She always left her driveway just after 6, jogging down the before heading into the Greenbriar Path, a trail that curved through a wooded stretch of town. It was predictable, almost clockwork. That predictability would cost her everything. Elena set out at a steady pace. Her breathing was measured, her mind focused. As she reached the trail, the morning mist deepened, wrapping the woods in an eerie haze. The ground crunched beneath her sneakers, the rhythmic sound blending with the faint hum of music in her ears. Unseen, someone else was moving. A figure lurked in the distance, keeping pace just far enough back to remain hidden in the fog. Step for step, shadow for shadow, they matched her. Elena was about halfway through her loop when she sensed it again, that feeling she had mentioned to Lydia just days earlier. The sensation of being watched. Her pace quickened slightly. She glanced over her shoulder, nothing. Just the quiet sway of trees and the occasional bird darting across the path. But what she didn't see was the outline of a hooded figure slipping from tree to tree, closing the distance. She adjusted her earbuds, shook her head, and tried to dismiss the unease. It was probably her imagination. Still, her hand brushed the phone in her armband, almost instinctively, as though testing how quickly she could grab it if needed. The assault was sudden. Elena reached a bend in the trail where the trees grew thicker, blocking the early light. As she rounded the curve, the figure lunged from the path. A strong hand clamped down over her mouth. The other arm wrapped tightly round her waist, pulling her off the ground and into the shadows. Her phone slipped from her armband, clattering to the ground and cracked. Elena thrashed violently, muffled screams piercing the stillness. She clawed at her attacker's arm, kicked against the ground, but the grip was unrelenting. The assailant shoved her deeper into the wooded area, away from the path. Birds scattered from the branches overhead. In the distance, a dog barked, but no one was close enough to intervene. She fought with everything she had. Her fingernails left deep scratches across the attacker's fur. She twisted, stomped, and managed to wrench free for a brief second, stumbling toward the trail. But she didn't make it. The attacker caught her, yanking her back by the hair, slamming her to the ground. It struck the dirt, dazing her. Then came the knife. It gleamed still in the dim light, a flash of silver against the haze. The blade came down once, twice, each strike deliberate, vicious. Elena's screams turned to choking gasps. Blood seeped into the earth, dark and spreading fast. The attacker paused only briefly, chasing before delivering one final fatal wound. It was over in minutes. Elena's body lay still, her ponytail matted with dirt and blood. Her hand twitched once, then fell limp. The attacker stood over her, trembling, staring down at what they had done. The forest was silent again, only the faint echo of her last scream. The attacker dropped the knife into a small black bag, wiped their hands with blood, and slipped back through the trees. By the time anyone arrived, they were gone, vanished into the suburban labyrinth like a ghost. At 6:15 a.m., just 3 minutes after the final blow, Martin Blake, a 62-year-old retiree, was walking his golden retriever along the same trail. He noticed the cracked phone first, lying face up in the ground, its screen glowing faintly. Then he heard it, the faint gurgling noise. When he turned the corner, the sight froze him in place. Elena, sprawled in the dirt, blood pooling beneath her. "Dear God," he gasped, fumbling for his phone. He dialed 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher's calm voice guided him. "Stay with her. Help is on the way." Martin knelt beside her, but he could see the truth in her eyes. Her chest rose once more, shallow and weak, then stilled completely. By the time paramedics arrived, Elena Marquez was gone. Police cordoned off the area within minutes. Yellow tape stretched across the trail as officers scoured for evidence. The gravel was smeared with blood, her phone shattered nearby, one of her earbuds torn loose from the cord. Detectives noted the details. The attack was brutal, personal. No belongings were stolen. The precision of the assault suggested planning, not impulse. This was no random act of violence. Someone had come specifically for Elena. As word spread, neighbors gathered in disbelief. How could this happen here, on this trail? To her? Whispers spread quickly. Was it a stalker? Was it Daniel, the bitter ex-boyfriend? Or Thomas, the quiet co-worker with an unclear relationship to her? And then there was the third possibility, that unknown hooded figure seen loitering near the trail in the weeks before. Whoever it was had known exactly where she'd be that morning. Crime scene investigators worked tirelessly. They collected the phone, bagged Elena's clothing, and combed the dirt for footprints. They found several overlapping impressions, one clearly belonging to Elena's running shoes, the other larger, boot-like prints leading back toward the street. On her fingernails, dried blood. She had fought her attacker, and in doing so, she had left behind a clue, DNA that would later prove pivotal. But for now, detectives had little more than fragments. The news spread like wildfire. By midday, the story had hit every local outlet. Beloved teacher killed on Morning Jog. Parents wept outside the school. Students left drawings and letters taped to the fence. The town of Larchwood, once considered safe and idyllic, now trembled with fear. People stopped using the Greenbriar Path. Jogging groups canceled their runs. Women refused to walk alone after dark. The killer was still out there. Later that evening, as mourners gathered for a candlelight vigil at the school, detectives observed the crowd carefully. In cases like these, killers sometimes inserted themselves into the grief, lurking among the mourners to watch their work ripple through the community. And, indeed, there was a man standing off to the side, his face partially hidden beneath a hood, eyes fixed on the ground. His presence went unnoticed by most, but not by detectives. His name would soon come up again and again as the investigation unfolded. The murder of Elena Marquez wasn't just another case. It was a storm that tore through the fabric of a quiet town. It shattered the illusion of safety, exposed the darkness hiding in plain sight, and marked the beginning of a relentless search for answers. The brutality of the attack suggested rage, the precision suggested planning, and the lack of theft pointed to a singular motive. This was personal. But who hated Elena enough to end her life on a quiet June morning? The answer would come slowly, piece by piece, as investigators untangled a web of secrets that no one saw coming. The investigation into the murder of Elena Marquez began within minutes of her body being discovered. Larchwood's police force, unaccustomed to homicides of this magnitude, quickly realized they were dealing with a case far beyond routine. The brutality, the precision, and the public nature of the crime demanded answers, and fast. Detectives Carla Navarro and Ethan Cole were assigned as lead investigators. Both were seasoned, but even they felt the weight of the town's fear pressing down on them. "This isn't random," Navarro whispered as she studied the trail where Elena's body had been found. "He came for her. He knew she'd be here." Cole nodded grimly, which means he knew her life well enough to know her routine. From the start, they were looking not for a stranger, but for someone who knew Elena personally. Forensic teams combed the area. The gravel trail bore 2 sets of prints, Elena's running shoes and a larger, heavier tread that appeared to follow her for several yards before veering into the woods. Investigators collected her cracked phone, later pulled for data extraction, a blood-stained cloth found discarded a few feet away, hair fibers tangled in Elena's clenched fist, DNA samples carefully swabbed from beneath her fingernails. These small pieces would become the anchors of the case. Navarro crouched near the phone, its screen frozen mid-run, tracking her pace in time. She didn't even stop the app. This was sudden. Cole studied the cloth. That wasn't hers. This was brought here. He planned this. The name Daniel Cross surfaced almost immediately. Elena's ex-boyfriend, known for his temper and inability to move on, seemed like the obvious suspect. Detectives arrived at his modest apartment later that morning. Daniel opened the door looking disheveled, eyes red-shot as though he hadn't slept. "Mr. Cross," Navarro began, her tone firm, "we need to ask you about your whereabouts this morning." Daniel stiffened. "I didn't do anything. I've already heard the news." "Then you know why we're here," Cole added. "Where were you at 6 a.m.? He claimed he'd been at home, asleep, alone. No alibi. No one to verify his story. The detectives pressed harder. Had he been following her? Had he been at the trail before? His hands shook as he denied it. But Navarro's eyes caught something, a fresh bandage on his forearm. "How'd you get that?" she asked. Daniel glanced down. "Work accident. Cut myself on sheet metal." It was plausible, but it was also convenient. Detectives photographed the wound, logged it, and collected a DNA sample. He was placed under surveillance immediately. Next on the list was Thomas Reed, the fellow teacher and rumored close companion of Elena. When detectives visited him, Thomas appeared visibly shaken. His hands trembled as he led them into his home. Unlike Daniel, he had an alibi. He'd been on a video call with his sister in Chicago around the time of the murder. The alibi checked out. Still, detectives weren't ready to clear him. "You were close with her," Navarro pressed. "Closer than you told people?" Thomas admitted they had grown close emotionally, but insisted it was never romantic. "She deserved better than Daniel. She confided in me, but that's all." Despite his alibi, detectives couldn't shake the thought. If Thomas's connection had been deeper than he admitted, was jealousy still in play? For now, they kept him on the list. Several witnesses had reported seeing a tall man in a hooded sweatshirt loitering near the trail in recent weeks. He never interacted with joggers, never spoke, just stood and watched. Police canvassed the area, speaking with neighbors and pulling nearby security footage. One camera, mounted on a garage facing the side road near the trail, captured a blurry image of a dark SUV parked at 6 a.m. the morning of the murder. The license plate was partially obscured, but detectives enhanced the footage enough to trace it to a 1999 black Jeep Cherokee, registered to a man named Victor Hale. Victor was a 35-year-old delivery driver with a minor criminal record, trespassing, disorderly conduct. He lived alone on the outskirts of town. When detectives questioned him, Victor denied everything. "I don't even jog. Why would I be out there?" he said with a shrug. But when Navarro asked about his SUV being seen at the scene, his face tightened. "Someone must have borrowed it," he muttered. It wasn't convincing. 2 days later, the forensic lab delivered the first major break. The DNA scraped from beneath Elena's fingernails was not a match to Thomas Reed. It was not a match to Victor Hale. It was a partial match to Daniel Cross. The lab confirmed that the blood and skin cells found under her nails were consistent with Daniel's profile. Navarro slammed the report onto the table. "She fought for her life. She scratched you. She left your DNA under her nails." Daniel's face flushed. "No, I saw her a few days before, yes. We argued, maybe she scratched me then, but not that morning. I wasn't there." Cole slid a photo across the table. The cloth, bloodied and stained with oil. "This was found at the scene. The oil matches your job site. Explain that." Daniel faltered. His hands shook. He couldn't explain. Still, he refused to confess. Just as detectives prepared to make their move, a new lead emerged. Security footage from a gas station a mile from the trail showed something alarming. At 5:50 a.m., 10 minutes before the attack, a black Jeep Cherokee, Victor Hale's vehicle, was seen driving toward Greenbriar Path, and in the driver's seat was Victor himself. Navarro and Cole were stunned. If Victor was at the scene, how did Daniel's DNA end up under Elena's nails? Were there two men involved? Digging deeper, detectives uncovered a disturbing link. Victor Hale had once worked alongside Daniel on construction jobs. The two men knew each other. Witnesses later recalled seeing them arguing outside a bar weeks before the murder. Had Daniel enlisted Victor to keep an eye on Elena? Did jealousy and rage boil into something darker? An alliance that ended in murder? The final breakthrough came from Elena's phone. Though cracked, the data was recovered. In her fitness app, a recording picked up faint background noise during her run. Between songs, there were sounds, muffled shouting and heavy breathing, and a chilling male voice muttering, "Stop running." Voice analysis was conducted. The match? Daniel Cross. That was the evidence prosecutors needed. On July 2nd, officers surrounded Daniel's apartment. He was arrested without incident, though he protested loudly, shouting, "I loved her. I didn't mean for this to happen." His arrest sent shockwaves through Larchwood. Parents who once suspected a stranger now realized the truth. The killer was someone Elena had once loved. Victor was also brought in. Under questioning, he admitted to being near the trail, but claimed he just gave Daniel a ride. He insisted he didn't participate in the murder. With limited evidence tying him directly to the stabbing, prosecutors charged him as an accessory. Detectives pieced together the sequence. Daniel, obsessed and unwilling to let go, tracked Elena's running schedule. Victor, whether coerced or complicit, drove him to the trail. Daniel ambushed her, dragging her into the woods and killing her in a fit of jealous rage. The evidence, DNA on her nails, the cloth from his job site, and the voice recording painted a chillingly clear picture. The town of Larchwood, once trusting and serene, now looked at every neighbor with suspicion. Parents demanded more patrols. The Greenbriar Path was closed indefinitely. At the school, Elena's empty classroom became a shrine. Her students left drawings of hearts and suns taped to her desk. Teachers wept as they packed away her books. The hunt for justice was complete, but the wound in the community was permanent. The arrest of Daniel Cross sent shockwaves through Larchwood. For weeks, the community had whispered about shadowy figures and strangers lurking in the woods. Many had hoped it was an outsider, someone who had drifted in and out of their town. But when detectives revealed that the killer was not a stranger at all, but Elena's ex-boyfriend, the betrayal cut deeper than anyone imagined. Daniel was formally charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors argued that the crime had been deliberate and premeditated. His history of harassment, the chilling DNA evidence, and the recovered audio from Elena's phone painted a damning picture. Victor Hale, meanwhile, was charged as an accessory to murder. He was accused of knowingly helping Daniel reach the crime scene and concealing evidence afterward. Though Victor denied active participation, his presence at the trail that morning made him complicit. The town of Larchwood braced for a trial that would become the most watched event in its history. For Elena's family, the days leading up to the trial were excruciating. Her mother, Elena Marquez, became a fixture at community vigils. She spoke softly, often through tears, describing her daughter as light in human form. Her younger brother, Mateo, carried his grief more privately. He attended every hearing, every pretrial conference, never speaking publicly, but always present, his jaw tight with rage. In interviews, Sophia revealed details that only deepened the heartbreak. Elena had been planning a summer trip to Spain, her first vacation abroad. She had just spoken of wanting to apply for graduate school in education. She said her life was about to bloom, and he took it from her. The trial of Daniel Cross began 6 months later in a courtroom overflowing with reporters, townspeople, and Elena's colleagues. The prosecution laid out their case meticulously. DNA under Elena's nails, confirming she scratched him during the attack. The cloth stained with oil, tied to Daniel's workplace. The audio recording, where his voice was clearly heard muttering, "Stop running," witness testimony, including neighbors who recalled his jealousy and erratic behavior after the breakup. The defense attempted to argue that Daniel had been framed, that the DNA had been transferred from an earlier argument, and that the voice recording was inconclusive. They suggested that Victor Hale, not Daniel, may have been the true killer. But the evidence was overwhelming. When Daniel himself took the stand, his testimony only worsened his case. He broke down, insisting he never meant for it to go that far. In that single moment, the jury saw not a man proclaiming innocence, but a man haunted by guilt. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with their decision: guilty of first-degree murder. Daniel Cross was formally sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Victor Hale, tried separately, was convicted of being an accessory to murder and sentenced to 12 years in prison. The courtroom erupted in tears. Relief from some, anguish from others. Sophia clutched her son, whispering, "She has justice now." But justice, though important, did little to fill the emptiness. For Larchwood, the trial's conclusion didn't erase the scars. Parents still hesitated to let children play outside. The once popular Greenbriar Path remained deserted, overgrown with weeds, a haunting reminder of where innocence was lost. The school where Elena taught transformed her classroom into a memorial space for the remainder of the year. Students left notes that read, "I miss you, Ms. Marquez," and "You were the best teacher ever." The school board later established the Elena Marquez Scholarship, awarded annually to aspiring teachers. It was a way of ensuring her legacy lived on, even if she was no longer there to guide her students. Detectives Navarro and Cole, though hardened by years of cases, admitted this one stayed with them. Navarro recalled the moment they played the audio recording in court. Hearing her run, hearing him chase her, it was like being in her final moments. "That will never leave me." Cole described walking the Greenbriar Path alone after the trial ended. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy. You could feel what had happened there. For the Marquez family, grief was a daily companion. Sophia often sat in Elena's room, untouched since the day she left for her final run, flipping through her journals. Mateo spoke openly about his anger, saying that no sentence could ever equal the loss. From prison, Daniel issued a written statement through his attorney. He expressed regret, but stopped short of a full confession. He wrote, "I loved Elena. I lost control. I can't explain what happened that morning. I just wanted her back." For Elena's family, the words rang hollow. Love, they said, doesn't kill. Victor Hale, on the other hand, refused interviews. He served his sentence quietly, never revealing the full extent of his involvement. Detectives remained convinced he knew more than he admitted, that perhaps he had followed Elena before, gathering information for Daniel, feeding his obsession. That silence left a lingering unease. Had Elena been stalked for weeks? Months? Were there moments she was watched, unaware, while tying her shoes or jogging past a bend in the path? Those questions may never be answered. Years later, Elena's story continues to echo. Her mother still visits the trail every June, laying sunflowers at the spot where her daughter fell. The path has since been renamed Marquez Memorial Trail, a bittersweet honor that draws joggers and mourners alike. Her students, many now grown, often speak about how she inspired them. Some went on to become teachers themselves, citing Elena's kindness as their guiding influence. Larchwood changed forever. The town, once naive to violence, now carries a quiet vigilance. The case remains a reminder that darkness can hide even in familiar faces, and that obsession can be as deadly as any weapon. In the end, justice was served, but the story of Elena Marquez remains one of tragedy. A woman full of life, taken on an ordinary morning. A mother left grieving, a brother left furious, a community left haunted. Daniel Cross spends his days behind bars, staring at the walls of his cell. Victor Hale will eventually walk free, though whispers of his complicity will follow him wherever he goes. And Elena's voice, Her laughter in the classroom, her footsteps on the trail, exist now only in memories. If this story moved you, like the video and share your thoughts in the comments, then let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories.